I had hoped to share a dance with my spouse, but it seems that option is off the table now, thanks to you, her, and asshole, I remarked as I turned away from Dee and returned to our table. The conversation at our table abruptly ceased upon my arrival. The diverted gazes spoke volumes. Our friends now knew that my spouse and asshole were currently betraying me. Jim, are you going to be okay? Dave cautiously inquired after seating Dee. I wanted to disclose Dee's words and inquire about his well-being, but the words wouldn't come out. I suppose I hadn't shed my nice guy persona yet. I needed to work on that. It depends on your definition of okay, I replied, eliciting a few nervous chuckles. I mean, yeah, what happened was terrible, but you two will work through this, won't you? You're not considering ending things with Linda over this, are you? I leaned back, observing the room and pondering. So many elegant women around. Why did Mark Lavalier choose my spouse? Why did she accept? Why did she discard me? Our children were becoming more independent as they grew older. They would soon leave the nest, and Linda and I had already been discussing our plans for that stage of our lives. Months ago, a small part of my mind had contemplated what would become of Linda and me. I had assumed we'd grow closer, spending quality time together. Then, the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Linda's future might not include me. I felt foolish. This thought dissolved all my sadness and disappointment, leaving only anger in its wake. Judging by the concerned looks around the table, my expression seemed to convey either imminent explosion or a dangerously impulsive act. Dee nervously inquired, "Are you okay, Jim?" Across the dance floor, four attractive young women sat in a booth. Why hadn't Mark Lavalier chosen one of them? I observed them briefly before bursting into laughter. It was loud enough to startle everyone at the table. Tears streamed down my face as I laughed uncontrollably, drawing attention to our table. Eventually, my laughter subsided, and I wiped away the tears, offering a wide smile to everyone. I realized my life had undergone a drastic change. I was no longer in a monogamous relationship. I no longer needed to fret over my spouse's feelings because she no longer cared about mine. All eyes were fixed on me. I turned to Dee with a smile, slipped off my wedding ring, and handed it to her, leaving her stunned. Pass that along to Linda when you see her. I have other matters to attend to. Standing up, I left a $10 bill on the table. That should cover my drink. Since you've been so supportive of Linda's affair, you can foot the bill. Walking away from the table, my former friends called out my name. As I exited the club, I pondered what I would say if they attempted to follow me. One thing was certain, if any of the husbands dared to follow me and ignored my warning, I wouldn't hesitate to confront them. As I made my way back, my mind raced. Linda was out indulging in her own pleasure, so I decided to do the same. Upon arriving at the hotel, I inquired with the receptionist about available full-sized suites. She regretfully informed me there were none, but the bridal suite was vacant and offered a range of amenities. I'll take it. We won't be able to upgrade your current room, as it's late, she explained. I want both rooms. My wife will remain in the original room, and I'll stay in the suite. The receptionist briefly gave me a puzzled look, silently questioning my intentions. After providing me with the keycard to the suite and directions, I instructed her, if my wife asks for a key to my room, please don't provide one. And could you ensure that nobody informs her of my presence in the hotel if she inquires? The receptionist wore a curious yet amused expression. I'll ensure the hotel staff is aware of your request. Returning to my old room, I packed my belongings, leaving Linda's items in the trash cans. Taking the elevator to the top floor, I entered the spacious bridal suite, complete with a jacuzzi on a large balcony overlooking the city. I had brought along an expensive dinner jacket, just in case we decided on late-night drinks at one of the upscale restaurants nearby. After donning the jacket, I headed back to the club, stopping at the ATM to withdraw cash. Upon my return to the club, there was a long queue at the entrance. Approaching the doorman confidently, I handed him a $100 bill. With a smile, he welcomed me inside. My former friends were still seated at the table when I re-entered. Scanning the club, I hoped to spot what I had seen earlier, a table by the dance floor occupied by four beautiful young women. Seeing no men with them, it seemed to be a girls' night out, which suited me perfectly. Navigating through the club, I caught Dee's attempt to get my attention as I passed by their table. Though her voice was lost in the din, I noticed all eyes on me. Ignoring them, I strolled over to the table where the four ladies sat. What brings four lovely ladies to this table without company? They all smiled. The taller brunette chuckled. Our friend here got dumped by her jerk of a boyfriend for some other girl, so we're here to cheer her up. Clearly, she was a bit tipsy. Well then, if you ladies don't mind, I'd be honored to dance with your friend and brighten her evening. All four sets of eyes turned to the petite redhead. She grinned and extended her hand for me to assist her from the booth. As we danced, I inquired about her name. Samantha. I'm Jim. How could any guy be foolish enough to let go of such a beautiful woman like you? Because he's a jerk. We laughed and conversed during the dance. Samantha was studying nursing in college and grew up nearby. When a slower song began, we continued dancing. With the music softer, Samantha ventured, "Are you married, Jim?" Separated. Was that your wife dancing with Mark Lavalier earlier? I noticed she vanished afterward. You noticed that, huh? Everyone in the club did, Jim. I offered Samantha my best smile. I guess you found out about my separation the same time I did. Samantha returned the smile warmly, and we danced closely for the remainder of the song. Both recently hurt by someone we cared for, it felt comforting to hold each other. As the song ended, we returned to Samantha's table. She announced to her friends, "I know we said no men, but I want Jim to stay with us." The brunette teased, but we agreed, no guys. How about I treat everyone to a couple bottles of champagne to make up for it? A deal's a deal, the brunette hesitated. Samantha intervened. Mark Lavalier left with his wife earlier. Seriously, the three exclaimed simultaneously. They scooted over in the booth to make room for Samantha and me. Before I could learn their names, the blonde beside Samantha questioned, "Do you have an open marriage?" "Absolutely not." Another blonde chimed in, "What did she tell you?" She didn't. She claimed she was heading to the restroom and then slipped out the back with Mark. The brunette erupted, "That cheating woman." I gestured with my thumb over my shoulder without looking back. And my ex-friends covered for her. At that moment, the waitress approached us. I inquired if everyone enjoyed champagne, receiving smiles all around. "Bring us 2 bottles of your finest champagne," I requested. The girls cheered. Before they could ask anything else, I introduced myself. Their names were Kim, Christy, and Susan. They were all studying nursing with Samantha. Once the champagne arrived and our glasses were filled, Christy, the brunette, asked about my wife. "As far as I'm concerned, we've been separated since she walked out," I replied. "Do you have kids?" she inquired further. "Unfortunately, yes, a boy and a girl, 15 and 13. But in a few years, they'll be independent, and I'm considering an upgrade in the wife department." Samantha linked her arm through mine and declared loudly, "Forget about her, you're with me tonight." We all clinked glasses and enjoyed our champagne. I shared some jokes with the girls, and they reciprocated. Laughter and drinks flowed. They danced with some guys and each other, while Samantha stayed seated with me, her arm still looped through mine. Towards the end of the night, Christy suddenly got up with a determined look and hurried off. We watched as she intercepted Dee, who seemed to be approaching our table. They engaged in a heated conversation, though we couldn't hear the words. Christy ended up giving Dee a piece of her mind, causing her to cry and retreat to her seat. Then Christy proceeded to give a verbal lashing to everyone at Dee's table, drawing laughter from surrounding tables. When she returned, Kim and Susan cheered her on. Christy finished her champagne, smiled at me, and said, "None of those jerks will dare to come near us for the rest of the night." I glanced over at their table to see them leaving, Jane and Dee both in tears, avoiding our gaze. "What did you say to them, Christy?" "I saw that woman heading your way, so I intervened and let them know my thoughts on people who support cheaters." "You made quite an impression. They clearly wanted me to forgive Linda to ease their consciences. I owe you a kiss for that." Samantha grabbed my head and exclaimed, "Oh no you don't," before planting a big kiss on my lips, cheered on by the other girls. After the kiss, Samantha smiled sweetly at me. Kim joked, "Get a room, you too." "Well, actually," I said, "I have a suite in the hotel nearby, and you ladies don't seem fit to drive. If we hurry, we can order more champagne there." After settling the bar tab, we made our way to the hotel. Samantha clung to my arm, while the others held onto us for support. At the front desk, I ordered 4 bottles of champagne for the room. When I mentioned it was the bridal suite, the ladies burst into giggles. In the elevator, they started singing the wedding march, causing Samantha to blush but hold on to me tighter. Upon reaching the room, they joked about me carrying Samantha across the threshold. Looking at Samantha, I said, "You don't have to if you don't want to." I pushed the door open and swept Samantha into my arms, carrying her into the room. As I entered, Samantha wrapped her arms around my neck and planted a big kiss on my lips, eliciting laughter from the other ladies. They stopped teasing us when Christy noticed the jacuzzi on the balcony. Before I could set Samantha down, all 3 had stripped down to their underwear and were already in the jacuzzi. I gently placed Samantha on her feet, but she continued to hold my hand and smile up at me. There was a knock on the door, and it was room service with the champagne. We took the champagne out to the ladies, who were joking and giggling. Susan teased me about being overdressed and suggested I join them in the jacuzzi. I chuckled, explaining that I was keeping Samantha company. They urged Samantha to join them, but she just smiled and led me back into the suite. We crossed the room to the bridal suite, with her friends singing the bridal march from the balcony amidst fits of laughter. The next morning, I woke up with Samantha wrapped around me and 3 other naked ladies sprawled across the king-size bed. They must have climbed in after Samantha and I had fallen asleep. I slipped out of bed, and Samantha watched me with a smile. I returned her smile. "Did you enjoy yourself, Jim?" "Yes, it was the best night of my life." "Any regrets?" "None whatsoever." "Come, let's shower together." Samantha slid out of bed and led me to the bathroom. "I want you again this morning in the shower." Wanting to experience something new, I picked up Samantha and stood with her against the wall in the shower. It was exhausting, but it led to one of the best orgasms I've ever had. Samantha climaxed loudly twice before me. After showering, we discovered that our lovemaking had woken up the other ladies. They were hungover but happy, enjoying room service and mimosas. Christy joked about wanting to try the shower next. They all laughed when Samantha and I exchanged smiles. After they each took a shower, they left, except for Samantha, who asked if I could give her a ride home. During the drive, she snuggled up to me. "Jim, I know what your wife did last night was awful, but you might still reconcile with her. If not, I'd love for us to see each other again." Samantha smiled hopefully. "I'd love that, Samantha. At this point, I don't plan on staying with my wife. I had a great time with you. You're what I need right now, so call me if you think we can be together." I bid Samantha farewell at her door. Upon opening it, I found Christy sitting on the couch, offering me a smile and wave. As I left, I realized I had yet to decide what to do about Linda. Returning to the club had been a reactionary move to Linda's betrayal. It hadn't resolved my issues with her, but it did offer some solace. Arriving home, I collapsed into my living room chair, opting not to turn on any lights as I contemplated how to end my crumbling marriage with minimal impact on my children. After an undetermined amount of time, I heard a car pull into the driveway, followed by the sound of a key in the lock. "Jim? Jim, I'm home," Linda called out in her usual tone upon returning from errands. She switched on the light, and I turned to face her. She appeared unchanged. The blue dress still accentuated her figure as it had the night before. Her dark hair cascaded down her back in the same manner. Her posture, expression, and the rings on her finger were all identical to the night before. It seemed surreal that she could spend the entire night and morning betraying me with another man and yet show no visible sign of it. "It's still me, just the same as always," she said with a gentle smile, sensing my thoughts. "There's nothing different, nothing has changed. My love for you remains as it was yesterday." I wish I could say the same, I replied, realizing how devoid of emotion I sounded. Jim. With a steely gaze, I pointed towards our bedroom. Don't start. Go take a shower. It took some insistence, but Linda eventually complied. After her shower, she returned downstairs. Jim, where are my clothes from last night? I suppose they're still in the hotel room where you left them. You didn't bring them home? No. Was there something important you left behind? Linda hesitated, realizing any complaint about my apparent lack of consideration would sound absurd. Why did you do it, Linda? She sighed. It was Mark Lavalier. He's wealthy and renowned, capable of having any woman he desires. When he asked me to dance last night, I felt like the most desirable woman in the room. He made me feel special. Linda's face still glowed as she recounted the events of last night. It was evident in her demeanor that she was mentally reliving those moments, disconnecting from our conversation to reminisce fondly. This was the tipping point, the moment I realized it was truly over. Linda would forever treasure her time with Mark Lavalier more than any moment with me. I was merely an afterthought. Do you love him now? I asked. No, I don't love him. It was just physical. I love you, Jim, Linda replied. We clearly have different interpretations of how to treat someone you love, I retorted. Linda's surprised expression indicated she still felt justified, dismissing my feelings as mere ego bruising. Yet, it was her actions that crushed my ego to feed hers. I came back to you because I love you, Jim, she insisted. If he asked you to stay, to be his girlfriend or wife, would you still be here? I pressed. Linda hesitated briefly, then met my gaze. Of course not. I love you, Jim. You hesitated, Linda. I know what that means. You would have stayed if he asked, I concluded. It was just one night. It meant nothing. Linda protested. Discussion is over. I need time to think. Pack some bags for you and the kids. You'll be staying with them at your parents' place this week, I declared firmly. But Jim. Discussion is over. If you insist on pushing this now, given how I feel, you won't like the outcome, I warned, my voice tinged with anger. Linda packed her bags and left. Once she was out of sight, I set my plan in motion. Seeing Linda in her unchanged state upon her departure triggered an epiphany. I realized that for me to move forward, something had to change. I called my boss and requested 2 weeks off, then rented a moving truck and purchased supplies from the hardware store, wood, sheetrock, paint, and 2 external doors. Returning home, I grabbed my crowbar and began the transformation. I removed the front door and surrounding windows, creating a larger opening where I installed 2 front doors. Framing a wall down the main entryway, I separated the house into 2 parts, effectively creating a duplex. I installed a new back door for the new kitchen on one side, while converting the office into a bedroom for myself. The dining room became the 3rd bedroom on the other side, designated for Linda. Each side almost mirrored the other, except for the detached garage on Linda's side, which I would replace later. I changed the lock on the garage and adjusted the garage door code for my access only. Additionally, I erected a fence in the backyard, dividing it precisely in half. The transformation was complete. I now owned a duplex. I kept in touch with the kids daily, informing them of my progress with the house. Linda repeatedly requested to talk, but I brushed her off, not in the mood for her explanations. After a few days, I called Samantha, craving her voice and the possibility of spending more time together. I thought you'd forgotten about me, Samantha said. I can't stop thinking about you, I replied. Are you going to invite me out on a date? She asked. Nope, I teased. Quit teasing me, she insisted. I really am not going to ask you out on a date. I was thinking more of a weekend getaway, just you and me, I revealed. Really? Samantha exclaimed. Yes, I confirmed. Where to? She inquired eagerly. The Bahamas sound nice. Can you get away this weekend? Fly out Thursday and come back Tuesday? I proposed. Yes, yes, yes. Samantha enthusiastically agreed. Just bring your phone and your passport. We'll buy everything we need there, I instructed. After excitedly discussing our upcoming trip, I had to end the call to arrange the plane fare and hotel accommodations. A last-minute trip to the Bahamas wasn't cheap, but I reasoned that if Linda divorced me, she would receive half of our savings and my salary for child support. It amused me to think that it was as if Linda was indirectly financing Samantha's portion of the trip. I transferred our savings account into a bank account solely in my name and updated my paycheck to be deposited into this account. Although I doubted Linda would cancel the credit card, I wanted to ensure I had access to funds just in case. I worked tirelessly, putting in 16-hour days to erect all the walls, although my side was not fully finished. By Wednesday, I managed to complete the center wall and paint it on Linda's side. I knew I would have to separate the power, gas, and water utilities later, but for now, Linda couldn't disconnect my side since we shared the same services. On Wednesday night, I instructed Linda to bring the kids home in the morning. Thursday morning, I locked up my side of the house and waited for their arrival. When they pulled up, they were stunned to see the changes. "What did you do, Dad?" Emma asked incredulously as they stepped out of the car. "I turned our house into a duplex." "Don't you like it?" I replied, trying to maintain a positive tone despite their bewildered expressions. They stood there speechless, so I took them on a tour of the new house. I assured them that their belongings were already moved into their respective rooms. Despite their initial shock, the mention of a future pool with a jacuzzi brought smiles to their faces. As the kids began unpacking, I sensed Linda's desire to talk, but I focused on helping the kids settle in and ensuring they had everything they needed. Emma eventually asked, "What brought this on, Dad?" while keeping a close eye on Linda, sensing something was amiss after spending the last few days with her. "Oh, we are getting closer to becoming empty nesters. I realized things were not going to stay the same forever. Just getting ready is all," I explained to Emma and Tommy. "Gee, Dad, you could have at least discussed it with us first to see how we felt about it," Emma remarked. "Well, actually, it was your mom's idea. She said that she had decided that we needed a change, and she needed something different," I revealed, casting a knowing glance at Linda, who looked taken aback. "Mom, why would you make such a huge decision and not discuss it with us?" Emma questioned. "Yeah, Mom. Don't you care what we think?" Tommy chimed in. Looking uncomfortable, Linda responded, "It was just a miscommunication. Your dad just misunderstood how I felt." "I don't know, honey. You made your intentions very clear at the time. In fact, once I saw you fully commit to your decision, I knew there was no going back," I said, observing Linda's reaction. Linda appeared on the verge of tears and left the room. Tommy remarked, "What's up with Mom lately? She's been crying over everything." I shrugged my shoulders, encouraging them to ask her directly. Before Emma could ask another question, I informed them of my upcoming trip out of town and assured them I would call them every night but would not be reachable during my trip. After giving them kisses on their heads, I hurried out the door, leaving Linda still in the bedroom. I picked up Samantha from her apartment, and we embarked on a memorable trip. It was one of the best times of my life, filled with luxury and fun. By the time we returned, I dropped Samantha off at her apartment, where she gave me a passionate kiss. "Do you want to spend one more night with me?" she asked. "Yes, I would, but I have to face the music sometime, and you have class tomorrow," I replied. "Call me at bedtime. I need to hear your voice before I go to sleep," she requested. "I would love that," I said, returning her kiss. Driving home with a smile, I remembered Samantha's words about seeing herself falling for someone like me. As I approached my house, I noticed Linda's car in her driveway. Deciding to avoid a confrontation, I parked on the road in front of my side of the house. While unpacking, Linda knocked on my front door. "You're back," she stated. "Yes, I am," I confirmed. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Sure, what do you want to talk about?" I replied. "Can I come in?" she inquired. "No. You are not allowed on my side. To be clear, this is my personal living space, and you are not welcome on this side." Ever, I asserted firmly. Linda, visibly shaken, stared at me before returning to her side, realizing the reality of our new living arrangement. We both sat at her kitchen table. Jim, I love you and want things back the way they were, Linda pleaded. Not going to happen, I replied firmly. Why not? She asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Because, if you had not noticed, you did things that permanently changed what I think of you, I explained. It doesn't have to be this way, Linda insisted. Actually, it does. There is no undoing what you did and how I feel about it, I said, trying to remain composed. But I love you, Linda interjected. I took a moment to collect my thoughts. Let's say we were out on a date, as a couple, with our friends. You walked away from me and left with another man and spent all night and the next morning with him. If you'd done that on our first date, would there have been a second one? But Jim, it was Mark. Linda started. I don't care who it was. You chose someone else over me, I interrupted. Jim, I keep trying to tell you, I didn't choose Mark over you, Linda protested. So, you didn't choose to sneak out the back of the club? You didn't choose to be with Mark Lavalier? I questioned. It was just one night. Linda pleaded. You had your whole life to show me how much you love me. The moment someone more famous talked to you, I became leftovers. Does this mean I have to keep you away from all famous athletes? Famous actors? Famous politicians? You know there is a marathon this weekend. Are you going to be with the winner? I expressed my frustration. Jim, that's not fair, Linda protested again. In a quiet, even tone, I said, so, there it is. You now want me to be fair. You want a fair chance to minimize your betrayal. A fair chance to talk me out of my anger over what you did. A fair chance to shame me for feeling betrayed. A fair chance to guilt me for not putting our family ahead of my own pain. Seems I am the only one expected to be fair in this relationship. I reached across the table and held her hand, a mixture of sadness and resolve in my expression. Linda looked into my eyes, realizing the gravity of the situation. Too late, Linda, I said gently. Too late, she echoed, a hint of disbelief in her voice. Yes. Too late. I have found someone else, I confessed, watching her reaction carefully. No. Linda exclaimed, withdrawing her hand abruptly. You know who it is. I'm sure Dee and your friends told you who I was with that night after you left. The redhead who I danced with. The one who held me tightly while we danced. The woman who replaced you on the anniversary you threw away, I explained, trying to keep my emotions in check. As my words sank in, I saw sadness in Linda's eyes. I realized Dee must have sent Linda pictures of Samantha and me dancing together intimately. With simmering anger in her voice, Linda demanded, Are you doing this to get back at me? Throwing some 24-year-old in my face to get even? 21, actually. I spent the last 4 days with her down in the Bahamas. You know that dream vacation you and I always wanted to go on? It was spectacular, I revealed, unable to contain my excitement. Linda's gaze hardened as I finished speaking, her anger palpable. My grin probably didn't help matters, but I quickly forced myself to relax, mindful of our children. With a deep breath, I wiped the smirk off my face. Linda seemed ready to unleash a torrent of condemnation, but when she saw my smirk return, she hesitated. Realizing I anticipated her every word, she fell silent, an unfamiliar sight. We sat in tense silence, locking eyes. She wanted to scold me, to assert her dominance, but the ground she stood on was shaky. The trust she once held over me had evaporated in a single night of passion. Linda grappled with the realization that her actions had consequences beyond her anticipation. It doesn't matter, I still love you, Linda finally uttered, her voice wavering. Your love means nothing after what you did. You took my trust for granted and now you don't deserve me, I retorted, my resolve firm. Linda appeared bewildered, struggling to comprehend. I'm going home. I have work to do on the house. I'll be back for dinner with you and the kids. Don't bother me until then, I declared, rising to leave. Tears welled up in Linda's eyes as I departed. Walking away was agonizing, but I knew there was no going back. The Linda I once knew was gone, replaced by a painful reminder of betrayal. Later, I showed the kids around my side of the house, outlining my plans for renovations. They observed the dividing fence, realizing this side would be Dad's domain. Next, I showed them where the new rooms would be on my side of the house. "Why do I need 2 bedrooms in the house, Dad?" asked Tommy. "Because this side will be my house, and that side will be your mother's house," I explained. "Are you and Mom getting divorced, Dad?" "Mom won't say anything whenever we ask," Emma inquired. "Nope, just separated. I don't want to be a weekend dad, so I thought I would just split the house and you two can live on whichever side you feel like that day." Before we could delve further into the conversation, Linda stuck her head in the front door to announce that dinner was ready. We ate in silence, and Linda appeared tense, sensing that the kids had caught wind of what was going on. Tommy exclaimed a bit too loudly, "I'm living on Dad's side as soon as he finishes my room." Linda's face showed shock. "Dad said you are separating?" "We are not. This is just a misunderstanding, and we haven't finished discussing it yet," Linda hurriedly responded. "Let's pause for a moment. Subscribe to the channel and write your opinion in the comments. Let's continue the story." Emma slammed her hand on the table and demanded, "Who cheated? I want to know." The kids looked between Linda and me. I locked eyes with Linda, who remained fixated on her plate. Linda began to cry, and the kids got their answer. I told them their mom was tired and needed some rest. I escorted Linda to her bedroom, undressed her, and tucked her into bed, kissing her forehead like she was a child who had just woken from a nightmare. I turned off the light and closed her door. I treated Linda with the same care as I would for one of my children, albeit a grown-up child who had committed a grave mistake and was now serving a life sentence. I still loved her, but she would no longer be part of my daily life or thoughts. I checked on Tommy first, finding him texting his friends in his room. I offered to talk, but he declined. I gave him a fist bump and went to Emma's room. Emma was tearful and angry. "Why did she do it, Dad?" "You will have to ask her," I replied gently. "Can't you just forgive her?" Emma pleaded. "Then I would never be able to forgive myself," I confessed. Emma sighed. "I know, but I want us to stay together as a family." "We are, Pumpkin. I just won't be sleeping in the same room as your mother anymore," I assured her, giving her a hug before returning to my side of the house. This routine became our new normal. I continued to leave for work before the kids woke up, and Linda and I split our time shuttling the kids to their activities. We still had family dinners when possible on Linda's side of the house. Linda attempted to discuss our situation about once a week, but I shut down the conversation, expressing my unwillingness to talk about it. The noticeable change was during school functions. I made a point not to stand or sit near Linda. If she approached me, I'd excuse myself and relocate, often finding company with other single or divorced women we knew. When asked about my relationship status, I always replied, separated. Over the next month, I invested in new clothes, appliances, kitchen cabinets, and furniture for my side. It transformed into a modern bachelor pad with a large TV and entertainment system. Linda questioned the expenses, especially the top-end convertible I purchased. "Jim, can we afford all this?" "That car must have cost a fortune," Linda expressed concern. "Well, my previous car was 8 years older than yours, and I needed an upgrade. As for the other purchases, did you expect me to live in a bare space? And the furniture? I thought it best not to disrupt your home's decor," I explained. "I would have been happy to share our furniture," Linda countered. "That's okay. I never quite liked your taste anyway," I replied honestly. "But don't worry, we're financially secure. The house is paid off, and once the kids move out, my side will be too big for me. I plan to rent it out for extra income." Linda smiled, attempting to be affectionate. "I'm not complaining. I like your new car. You look great in your new clothes." "Thanks." Tommy and Emma suggested the convertible, and Samantha helped me with the clothes and furniture. We have similar tastes, I explained. Linda's smile faded at Samantha's mention, and she withdrew her hand from my shoulder. Oh, I see. I was just curious, she said before walking away. I didn't intend to flaunt Samantha in front of Linda, but she was becoming an integral part of my life. I found myself thinking about Samantha more often, with little consideration for Linda's feelings. Samantha gradually became a regular presence on my side of the house. Tommy had already moved his main bedroom there, and Emma began spending more time with Samantha, seeing her as a cool older sister. Soon, Samantha was spending most weekends and weeknights at my place. Linda voiced her discomfort when I suggested Samantha join us for family dinner again. While she remained polite, it was evident she didn't want this to become routine. The next day, Linda confronted me as I was leaving for work. Jim, I appreciate your social life, but can you please refrain from bringing your girlfriend to our family dinners? That's our time together with the kids. Sure, I won't attend dinner when Samantha is over. But I'll extend an open invitation for the kids to join me and Samantha, I replied. That's not fair, Jim. Family dinner should be just us, Linda protested. Well, let's talk about fairness, Linda. Samantha is a significant part of my life now, and excluding her from family dinners isn't fair to anyone involved. If you want to exclude her, you'll be excluding me too. But Jim. Linda, your idea of fair has always favored you. Remember that night you sneaked out to be with Mark Lavalier? That wasn't exactly fair to me, was it? I reminded her. Even though we were no longer together, Linda still tried to manipulate me. But I stood my ground. If you're not comfortable with Samantha joining us, we can have dinners on my side, and you can visit. Samantha loves cooking and would be happy to host. Touched by Linda's change of heart, I replied, I appreciate that. Samantha will be glad to hear that. After the pool and jacuzzi were completed, Tommy enjoyed having Kim, Christy, and Susan over to hang out at the new pool. They playfully flirted with Tommy, each trying to outdo the other and making him blush. Their friendly competition began with wearing increasingly revealing swimsuits. Ultimately, Christy emerged as the winner after she kissed Tommy in the pool, causing quite a stir. Tommy's newfound confidence with girls led to him getting a girlfriend at school, and the girls shifted their attention to treating his girlfriend with admiration. Meanwhile, I maintained my boundaries with Linda, ensuring she didn't intrude on my relationship with Samantha. However, a few years later, Samantha and I broke up. It became apparent during Susan's wedding that our age difference was a concern for Samantha. While we had a wonderful relationship, the issue of starting a family highlighted our differing priorities. Although I proposed to Samantha, she expressed her desire to pursue the family life, suggesting that our age gap posed a challenge she couldn't overlook. Despite my efforts to address her concerns, Samantha ultimately felt that our relationship didn't align with her long-term goals. I accepted Samantha's decision and assured her that I would always be there for her if she changed her mind in the future. Although our relationship ended, I cherished the time we spent together and appreciated Samantha's honesty in our discussions. Regarding Linda's friends, who were once my friends as well, they occasionally tried to convince me to reconcile with Linda. However, I reminded them of the betrayal I witnessed that night with Mark Lavalier and emphasized the importance of trust in a relationship. I made it clear that I wouldn't consider getting back together with Linda given the circumstances of her infidelity. Months later, karma seemed to strike when I heard that the girls decided to change their girls' night out to a new dance club frequented by Mark Lavalier, without informing their husbands. Dave's work friend later mentioned to him that he had spotted Dee at the club dancing with Mark Lavalier. He even noted that Mark Lavalier vanished around the same time the group of women left the club. However, Dave's friend didn't see Dee leaving with Mark Lavalier. When confronted, all the wives vehemently denied being at the club and claimed there was a misunderstanding. But a few days later, Dave's friend sent a photo of himself with his girlfriend at the club, where Mark Lavalier could be seen talking to the wives at their table in the background. Eventually, the wives admitted to being at the club, but they insisted that none of them left with Mark Lavalier. Their conflicting stories led to the truth emerging, but they refused to reveal who left with Mark Lavalier to protect their friend Dee. Unfortunately, by the time they confessed, the damage was done, and trust was irreparably shattered. During a meeting where the husbands compared their wives' stories, Dave expressed his disbelief at how easily they lied for each other. He questioned whether this was the first time they had covered for each other and speculated if Dee's night with Mark Lavalier was just the tip of the iceberg. Each husband recalled the expressions on their wives' faces when Mark Lavalier approached their table that night. They remembered their wives justifying Linda's behavior and expressing envy at her opportunity. After Linda's first night out with the girls, the husbands noticed a heightened sexual energy from their wives, fueled by Linda's recounting of her encounter with Mark Lavalier. Initially, the husbands welcomed the added excitement in the bedroom. However, they soon discovered some concerning patterns. They realized that all four couples had purchased new white silk sheets and favored the same sexual position, cowgirl with their eyes closed, while their husbands remained passive below. The husbands began to suspect that they were merely substitutes for their wives' fantasies of Mark Lavalier, but Dee's night with him raised even more troubling doubts. Ultimately, all four couples ended in divorce within a year, as the husbands could no longer ignore the signs of their wives' infidelity and betrayal of trust. I learned about Dave's divorce firsthand when he apologized to me, recounting the events leading to it. Eventually, each husband personally apologized to me for their inaction during the night with Linda, admitting that if they had stood up for me, it might have sent a clearer message to their own wives, potentially saving their marriages. As for Mark Lavalier, his habit of pursuing married women eventually angered the wrong person. Although nobody knows who, someone in a ski mask tasered Mark as he exited a club with his latest conquest. Before Mark could recover, the assailant wielded a hammer, inflicting severe injuries to his genitals and kneecaps. Despite video evidence, no one was prosecuted due to the numerous husbands who had motive and opportunity. Mark was left unable to walk properly or engage in sexual activity. Regarding Linda, our last conversation about our relationship occurred on the day Emma left for college. By then, we were already divorced, and I had moved into a condo in the marina after renting out my side of the house. While standing in the driveway, Linda expressed her regret and asked if I would consider moving back in with her to see how things would go. She then offered me my wedding ring, hoping for reconciliation. However, I explained to Linda that the essence of our relationship had changed irreversibly since that night she tested my love by leaving. I emphasized that she didn't truly love me but rather cherished the idea of our once perfect marriage, the trust we shared, and the security I provided. I made it clear that her love for me now stemmed from the realization that she wouldn't find anyone else who could make her as happy or love her as deeply as I once did. Despite her hopeful gesture with the necklace and wedding ring, Linda remained motionless, her hand tightly gripping the necklace, her face betraying the desperation of her plea. "You didn't value what we had, and now it's gone. I can't continue to be there for you after what you did. I'll never allow myself to be in a situation where you could hurt me like that again. I always believed it was us against the world, but you destroyed us when you chose to be with Mark Lavalier." Linda started crying. "How many times do I have to apologize for going with Mark Lavalier?" "It's never been about Mark Lavalier, Linda. That night showed me something important. While I was angry and hurt at that table, I realized that we were a great couple because of me, not you. Your actions made me realize the strength of my own love. My love would never have even considered doing what you did. My love was the foundation that made us special." As I sat there, upset and reflecting, I saw Samantha across the room. She looked sad for me, but when our eyes met, she smiled. Her smile reminded me that I was still capable of happiness, that I could find love and build a new us, a different kind of us. That night, you opened my eyes and set me free. With that, I got into my convertible and drove away, feeling a sense of liberation. I couldn't wait to get home. Samantha had left her job out of town and moved in with me last week. Since then, she had been showing me how much she needed me in her life. Trust truly is a wonderful thing. Write your opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a great day.